Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Factions of Freedom. I'm your host, Nozer, Freedom Faction, whichever one you prefer, and we're going to be talking about some pretty crazy things as always. I've titled this episode Projects, Powers, and Psychics, not only because I like alliteration, but because we're going to be going over these things individually and what this means for us here in 2017, what is considered my present day. I have a lot of different things that are just kind of going on in this episode, so you guys are going to kind of have to I hope you're ready. You're definitely going to have to bear with me because this is going to be one of the ones that I don't know, I think you'll find it interesting. Putting it together, you know, is kind of one of those things where you see it just come together. That's all I can really say. Few updates beforehand. If you haven't noticed, we are definitely doing more things with Stranger Than Fiction News. You guys might catch me doing a weekly segment over there on their page, station, channel. And if anything, that's good news because that's more expansion, more people to hear about what we're doing. And obviously we're growing. Also, make sure you guys are checking out our Patreon exclusive so you can get some of the behind the scenes work that we're doing. I mean, there's really only so much I can put down in a single day. So the best way to get it is to sign up for our Patreon exclusive membership, where you do get everything. You know, I mean, Instagram is only so much, but what you guys are doing whenever you sign up for the Patreon is you get everything that we're doing behind the scenes as soon as it happens, because literally these days we're having to play catch up with ourselves. Make sure you're tuning into Paradox Radio, where you guys can hear not only music that is submitted to us, conscious rappers, conscious artists, samples from interviews and doctors, philosophers, all kinds of other good things. There's a lot of different things that we're doing these days, but definitely pay attention to the website. More importantly, there's a lot of different things. But with that being said, welcome to the show, and let's get it started. So as I told you before, this episode is called Projects, Powers, and Psychics. Why? Because we're things like Project Grill Flame, things like Project Stargate, and all these other weird covert ops that allude to the fact that we do indeed have powers, or that we do indeed actually have some kind of extrasensory capabilities. And I think this is something that we need to take very serious. When we're looking at life today, when we're looking at how we handle things today, we have systematically cut ourselves out from the source. And now, due to a lot of the things that are happening, people are rediscovering it, and some are very angry at what they're seeing. So instead of trying to actually build up things, act in the light, make moves to build things, we're seeing more people destroy. So there's a lot of different things that I want to try to cover in this episode alone. But what basically kind of spurred this off is this question that you see before you right there, where we're talking or asking, do you believe you've had more than one psychic experience? Are you yourself a psychic? And I also asked, are empaths a type of psychic? Now, this is something I want to get into later, but I feel like this is something people need to keep in their head. Whenever we choose to cut ourselves off, to not feel, to only act in the physical and the flesh, there's a lot of things that you're basically missing out on. That's all I can really say. Whenever you're only acting in the body, in the corporeal shell, there's a lot of different disadvantages that come with that. The physicality is really only one perspective, and it has its respects. But I think what we need to look at, and what we tend to look at on the show, are not only the metaphysical implications, but the spiritual implications of things as well. So what I'm trying to get at overall is that when we're looking at all these types of things, when we're trying to identify ourselves in all of this crazy this crazy 2017 world that we're living in, where you got men becoming women, women becoming men, you know, Brad Pitt and Angelina ousting that they're actually having like Illuminati rituals, you know, WikiLeaks talking about Pizzagate, all these. Whenever you look at what's going on in our world, what we got to understand is not only are we being affected physically by what's taking place, but we're also seeing the spiritual world ramp up radically. So whenever I ask the question of if people have had psychic experiences, it's because of, I don't want to say the onslaught of attacks or waves or things that are taking place, but it's clearly a rise. Clearly something is going on, and I think that people are feeling it more so than they're able to describe it, and that's what we're going to try to go over in this episode. So as I said before, I don't want to go over if people are empaths and psychics yet. I would like to get into the projects part of it and how that there is actual study into people having psychic abilities and what this really means. You guys might have seen this kind of article or these types of articles floating around at the end of 2016. But basically what it was is right there. Declassified CIA files show how the U.S. has used psychics to spy on other countries. I think it was Iran. But the idea behind this, or the reality behind this, is that whenever you go and download some of these documents, whenever you see what they've been up to in our history, really, you start to understand that, all right, well, this is the logical progression. This is obviously something that they're trying to systematically implement. You see, so there's a lot of things I'm trying to allude to that I can explain better down throughout the episode. What am I trying to say? We need to understand that not only are we being affected physically while we see them trying to push us into a civil war or some kind of race war or some kind of altercation in the physical realm, there are also spiritual implications, metaphysical implications, astral implications, all kinds of different things that we need to look at whenever it comes to just this topic alone. And I'm not trying to warn anybody, or I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm not trying to exaggerate or anything of the like. I'm trying to, if anything, set the stage for where we're going to be going in this episode. But let's get into this article. It says, back in January, public pressure forced the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, to publish millions of once classified documents online, giving people the opportunity to browse the documents from home for the first time. However, written in the complicated jargon, the documents proved to be of little use, other than for exposing a spy agency's failure to produce viable research amidst unlimited funding and no real leadership following World War II. And we've actually talked about this before as well. The Central Intelligence Agency, things that happened post-World War II, like the Nazis, Project Paperclip, and all these other things that we'll get into later on. But the article goes on to say that among the jargon is a bit about psychics. The U.S. intelligence agencies and the Pentagon were given the opportunity to implement a 1975 psychic program in response to the Iranian revolutionaries seizing the U.S. embassy and taking 52 American personnel hostage. The Miami Herald notes that in an operation codenamed Grill Flame, which we'll go over later on, half a dozen psychics working inside a dimly lit room in an ancient building in Fort Meade, Maryland, on more than 200 occasions tried to peer through the ether to see where the hostages were being held, how closely they were guarded, and the state of their health. So, like I said, whenever I was trying to put this together, there's things like claircognizance, clairsentience, clairvoyance, clairaudio. There's all kinds of different psychic abilities that have been, I guess, expounded upon that fall underneath the category of having psychic abilities. And there's more that comes with that, with understanding what that can mean for your mind, because that's one thing that we look at frequently on this show, is the potentiality of the human mind, the capabilities of the human, and what happens whenever we're able to discipline ourselves and focus ourselves, you see. But going on, the article says that officially these the psychics work for the U.S. Army intelligence, but the documents in the CIA database make it clear that their efforts were monitored and supported by a wide array of government intelligence agencies, as well as top commanders at the Pentagon. They were even consulted before the secret U.S. military raid that attempted to free the hostages in April 1980, which ended in a disaster when a plane and helicopter collided at a desert staging area. In 1973, the CIA's Project MKUltra, which, if you've gotten this far on this show, you understand that MKUltra is really, again, another one of these types of projects: brainwashing, mind control, where they're making people into slaves, basically. And this is another one of the things that I talked about as well post World War II, with people like Werner von Braun, Joseph Mengele, the Angel of Death, and all of these people that basically continued their operations after World War II. And MK Ultra was another one of those. But it says that in 1973, the CIA's project MK Ultra was shut down for allegations of illegal human experimentation. Yeah, for sure. You know, you cannot feed people LSD or traumatize them. You can't break off split alter personalities and expect for that to be okay. But unfortunately, these types of things did take place, and they did continue. If you guys would want to see a great movie that kind of illustrates this, it recently came out. And trust me, I am no fan of M. Night Shyamalan. I have not forgiven him for Avatar nor Dragon Ball Z. However, I feel like he's trying to dig himself out of a hole with this new movie that he came out with, and it's called Split. Okay, it's got the actor from the new X-Men series, and basically he has 23 different personalities in him. And what we have to look at whenever we're looking at multiple personality disorder or DID, dissociative identity disorder, or these split personalities, is these are all coinciding consciousnesses that house one body, where people can be hosts. You see, and if you guys have been paying attention to any of the Instagram lately, you're seeing serious knowledge and forbidden knowledge talk about who's a host and who's not a host. We're not talking about that. What I am trying to say is that whenever people conduct these kinds of splitting, altering programs, you see they're creating all of these personalities that are able to do certain things, these subalter personalities that are able to have entirely different characteristics. One could be a shooter, one could be a killer, one could be a summoner, one could be the scout, one could be the person that's forgetful, you see, and all of these personalities are all interweaving within the one person. They have an ability to hyper focus, but also analyze different kinds of situations that are taking place all at the same time. And this is a very real capability of the mind, and this is what things like Project MK Ultra did. I mean, they were able to figure out that they could break a person down, break them out of their actual personality, and then turn them into basically a mind slave, and then implement their own personalities into them, give them their own personalities. You see, so these are all things that we need to look at, because this is, as I said before, the power of the human mind is incredible. But it goes on to say that this setback did little to stop the agency from moving forward with the psychic program in 1975, claiming that it was a foreign assessment tool. The 20-year program had 10 different code names, including Project Grill Flame, Project Center Flame, and all kinds of other things too that we'll try to get into. And this is this is emblematic, guys, of what I'm really trying to get at. You know, the fact that, yeah, they can say they shut these programs down, but what does this mean? That's just them telling us, yeah, you know, we're done publicly, but you know they'll still carry out these operations. You know they'll still do these things, and we'll get into that later. But as you guys are seeing, that there actually are declassified CIA documents. Well, I went out and downloaded some of them, printed them, and I am going to keep them in my own little note archive, so I can have things to reference on. Because this is the type of information for people who say that, you know, psychics aren't real, that people have no capabilities, people have no powers, people can't do these types of things. You know, for people to say these types of things, well, you know, this is what I was trying to hint at the start of the show. These are people who are only and solely operating in the physicality, in the flesh. They have no understanding of these other parts of themselves, these things that they can do. And I'm not saying that people should be out there, you know, practicing witchcraft. That's definitely not what I'm talking about at all. Let's get that straight. What I am talking about is the power of the mind. Whenever you're making pacts with demons and doing all kinds of spells and rituals, this, that, and the third, that's, you know, channeling spirits, that's something else entirely. We're definitely not trying to go down that path. Like I said, we're trying to explain the potentiality and the power of the mind. But this document that I have here, it is from INSCOM Human Technology, the Human Review Board, and it says that it is June 6th through June 14th, 1984, and this is basically a review of things like Project Grill Flame. Okay, and so I've got a few things highlighted and a few things that I'd like to go over that kind of they kind of, I would hope, explain it all, but we'll see what we can do. Okay, it says that I am Lieutenant Colonel Busby, Project Manager for INSCOM Project Centerlane. I would like to introduce you to my Operations Officer, Fred Atwater. The purpose of this briefing is to orient you to a unique intelligence collection project that uses the Centerlane technique. Prior to submitting our training and applications procedures for your review and action, I will discuss the history of the program, training, operations, and our plans for the future. The overall classification of the briefing is Secret Centerlane Level 4. So you guys are getting secret documents. This is cool if you ask me. It says that Centerlane is a registered Department of Army Special Access Program. The status, then, the sensitivity of the Centerlane mission requires us to adhere to strict security procedures. As part of these procedures, we ask all personnel who receive a Centerlane briefing to complete a security briefing certificate that acknowledges an acceptance of the sensitivity of the Centerlane information. It goes on to say that right here on chart 1, sir, the INSCOM Centerlane project involves the use of psychoenergetics. So I'm going to stop right there before I go on, because I feel like that is so cool. They've literally given a term to these types of phenomena. They've literally given it a term. The Department of the Army Special Access Program has given what can be classified as paranormal phenomena, pseudoscience, parapsychology. They've given it a term. It says that the INCOM Centerlane project involves the use of psychoenergetics for intelligence purposes. Psychoenergetics are the processes by which an individual may psychically interact with objects, locations, organisms, or events. This includes such disciplines as psychokinesis, remote viewing, and remote communications. So as they were talking about before, in that article, back in trying to free those hostages back in April of 1980, this is a review in 84. So yeah, I'm sure they were working with remote communications, with remote viewing. Being able to put yourself out of your body and observe the real world. I mean, what's a near-death experience? What's an out-of-body experience? Are these not the same types of things just accidentally taking place, or even purposely taking place? Who knows? But people need to understand that our body is truly the vessel. If that's not one thing that you've heard over and over again on this show, that you're a vessel for all these other types of energies that can come through. But whenever you understand that there's other energies and entities, you've got to learn how to protect yourself. You see, but if you haven't learned on this show yet that your body is just a vessel for a vessel for you to transmit yourself, where even your brain is just a computer, then we'll go. I hope I can try to illustrate that more throughout this episode. But this document goes on to say that our mission is as depicted on this chart. Wow, you would think these guys have better spelling skills. This is an official document, and there are so many grammatical errors. But it says conducting intelligence collection and counterintelligence operations utilizing all psychoenergetic processes applicable. Train selected personnel in state-of-the-art psychoenergetic intelligence collection and counterintelligence techniques, expand the operational capabilities and training beyond the confines of information collection into the fields of psychoenergetic communication and psychokinesis. So let's go over that one more time, because we kind of ran through that. And it says at the very end here, in order to understand and appreciate the Centerlane activities, it is necessary to discuss our history. We'll go into the history later on, because they're talking about doing these types of things since 1972. Okay. And they're saying that they closed down MK Ultra in 1973. So I'll get into that here in a second. But it says the first is to conduct intelligence collection and counterintelligence operations utilizing all psychoenergetic processes available. So basically, send yourself out somewhere, surveil the area, do reconnaissance, and let us know if you're able to interact with anything, if you're able to, mess with any of their electronics. Because what is one thing that we commonly hear whenever we're talking about non-human entities, human energies, human entities, and human spirits? Whenever we're talking about demons, basically, we've got to understand whether or not these are actual, if they actually are interdimensional beings, or if these are actually just human spirits that have been left over, the psychic residue. You see, there's a lot of different things that we have to look at with this, because the human mind is able to, it's powerful. That's one thing you're going to keep hearing throughout this entire show. Okay, and then the second thing is that they train selected personnel in state-of-the-art psychoenergetic intelligence collection and counterintelligence techniques. What could that be? What is state-of-the-art psychoenergetic intelligence collection techniques? State-of-the-art, which means that they would have had been doing this for quite some time. As I said before, 1972, 73, this is a review from the 80s. This is a process that's been going on for quite some time. I'm not sure when Project Paperclip took place, but whenever we're looking at these types of things, we've got to understand the origins. Okay, although we are talking about some very high occult things, what we've got to look at as well is this is in our history. That's why so many things are changing these days. That's why we're able to talk about these types of things, because not only are people experiencing these psychic experiences, having these strange things take place, but they're also having them themselves. Other people are weaponizing them. You see, there's so many different things that we need to look at whenever we understand how powerful the human mind is, but also at the same time how frail the human mind is. Because we talk about things like psychotronic warfare, them being able to induce certain thoughts due to these Gwyn towers and these cell towers and these ELF towers. But at the same time, we need to understand where all of this type of stuff comes from, what the origin of it is, and what this means and where they're going. But the third thing they're trying to depict as their mission is to expand operational capabilities and the training beyond the confines of information collection into the fields of psychoenergetic communication and psychokinesis. That's a mouthful. But basically they want to grow. They want to figure out what else can they do? What other ways can they try to collect this type of information? To create a database full of psychic research. This is where we have to talk about things like Russell Targ, Project Grillflame, Project Stargate. You see, all of these things that have taken place illustrate the world that we're living in. Not only do we have to worry about the Satanic Temple opening up international headquarters in Massachusetts and people saying that they're possessed by Lucifer after they've been shot in the mouth, but we also have to worry about organized government-sponsored psychics that have their own intentions that could, if anything, eventually go rogue. Are we talking about X-Men? To a degree, yeah. We really are. And at the end of this actual episode, I would like to tie it all in together so we understand really what this means and what the next step forward is. Because if this is our past, what do they have planned for us? So it goes on in this document, and I'll get over this a few more times so we can. I'll try to get out of this one and go on to the next one so we can get all this stuff out and get it onto the same page. But it says, since 1972, the U.S. government, including the Department of Defense, has been involved in examining the potential uses of psychoenergetics. In the early 1970s, serious consideration for psychoenergetics, primarily in the form of remote viewing as an intelligence gathering tool, received a great impetus from what can only be described as astounding successes in remote viewing research by two laser physicists at the Stanford Research Institute International. Remote viewing is an SRI international coined term which is defined as the acquisition and description by mental means of information blocked from ordinary perception by distance, shielding, or time. Is it starting to make sense? Is some of this is it clicking to you? That they're literally saying they're having success with these types of psychic things, right? And for people that are wondering, why am I going on and on about psychics? Why am I talking about, what's happened in our past? How is this relevant, EJ? How does this, what does this mean, Freedom? Well, All I'll tell you is this, guys. When we're looking at this type of stuff, whenever we have people like Katy Perry coming out talking about doing witchcraft against the president, opening up these types of doors for conversations like these types of things to happen, because this is in the news. This takes place in the news today, March 9th, 2017. We have Katy Perry fighting with nuns. So if you don't think that there's psychics, that there's witches, that there's warlocks, that there's wizards, that there's occultists, that there's Luciferians who are organized doing these types of things without the government's consult, who are strictly just doing this, I don't know what to tell you, because you're not thinking as deep as they are. So we need to understand that whenever we're looking at the past, understanding things like Project Grow Flame, like the Center Lane method, using and establishing a reason for these psychoenergetic studies, and we'll get back to this after I go into this article. We've got to understand how these things can be weaponized and become operational through these types of techniques. All right, and this happened today. Katy Perry has been branded disgusting by nuns at the center of a court battle over a spectacular former coven in Los Angeles. Okay. The singer wants to buy Sister Rita. Okay, let me read this one more time. Sorry about that. Katy Perry has been branded disgusting by nuns at the center of a court battle over a spectacular former coven in Los Angeles that the singer wants to buy. Sister Rita Callanan, 78, reveals that the order is so incensed about the sale of their one-time home, they have now gone to the Pope to get him involved, and I doubt he will help, enlisting the help of his top lawyer and to help them with the case. Who do you guys think he'll side with? If you're listening to this right now, send us an email. Who do you think the Pope will side with in this case? Katy Perry or the nuns? I think that would be truly interesting to see what you guys have to say. Along with Sister Rose Catherine Halsman, who is 86, the two women who belong to the Order of the Immaculate Heart of the Blessed Virgin Mary are locked in a battle over who has the right to sell the mansion where they lived, while they maintain the multi-million-dollar property in LA's Los Feliz. It belongs to the nuns. The Archdiocese of Los Angeles says that it's theirs. Sister Callahan told DailyMail.com that she would not be very happy at all if Perry got the property, adding that she does not like Katy Perry's lifestyle. And it's strange. I mean, whenever you look at it, I'll see if I can try to get this clip up for you guys, but whenever you look at it, wasn't Katy Perry the celebrity who talked about selling her soul to the devil? She wanted to do Christian music, right? And then out of nowhere, she said, oh, that didn't work, so what did she do? She decided to sell her soul. She decided to do all of this. Do we have that clip? I think we have it. Let's see if we can get it up for you guys. And right there, Katy Perry.
I had to ask some friends because I was hearing a lot about her, and so they told me, who she was and what she was doing. And I come from the school of thought there's just some things that the public just shouldn't know. You know what I'm saying?
I think you are an amazing singer. I just want to know, what sort of advice would you give an aspiring singer or actress? Because I know Hollywood can be a really hard town to try to break into. And what kind of advice would you give to them before they embark on this incredible journey? Thank you, and I hope you answer my questions.
When I was 15, because I grew up in, a household where all I ever did was listen to gospel music, and my parents are both traveling ministers, and so I kind of sang about, what was going on in my life at 15, and that's how I got introduced to the music industry. I swear I wanted to be like the Amy Grant of music, but it didn't work out, and so I sold my soul to the devil.
Didn't you release a CD like almost 10 years ago?
I released a gospel record when I was 15 because I grew up in, a household where all I ever did was listen to gospel music, and my parents are both traveling ministers, and so I kind of sang about, what was going on in my life at 15, and that's how I got introduced to the music industry. 'Cause I swear I wanted to be like the Amy Grant of music.
Yeah.
But it didn't work out, and so I sold my soul to the devil.
Just think that the whole idea of celebrity and fame has become really convoluted and, kind of bastardized, like whereas fame used to be the byproduct of success, and now it's the ultimate goal. And if your ultimate goal is to be famous, then you're gonna do a lot to get there, like sign your name in blood in a contract with the devil.
Yeah, Katy Perry, didn't you catch on? You're not supposed to sell your soul to Hollywood. And that's exactly what she did. She talked about listening to the gospel, and then what happened? She sold her soul because she wanted to be the Amy Grant of music. And look what's happening today. Look at where her fame has gotten her, what she's chosen to do with this lifestyle. This is how she decides to pay it forward. This is how she decides to help the next generation, is by joining up with people like Lady Gaga and Lana Del Rey, having occult witch rituals. You see? And that's how we have to look at it. These people, they tell you who they are. We understand the origins of this. You see? So whenever Sister Callahan's talking about how she doesn't like Katy Perry's lifestyle, I can understand that. I definitely understand that. The article goes on to say that I gave a lot of things. I gave a lot of the things from the internet to show the archdiocese what kind of woman she was. Some of the things she does are disgusting. She put out that hit song that I Kissed a Girl in the wake of a judge putting on hold against the decision that could either clear the way for Perry to buy the property in Los Angeles, Los Feliz, or leave up the issue to a jury. Recalling a meeting that the sisters had with the singer, Sister Callahan said that she had brought her mother Mary to the meeting, and I just thought, oh God, help us. Katy Perry was dressed all very nicely and said, I have this tattoo on my wrist, and it says Jesus. And I wanted to say yes. And what is that tattoo? On your behind? Indicating that Katy Perry has some tattoos, in some other places. So basically what they're trying to say is they don't want to sell the property to people like Katy Perry. They don't want to sell the property to people who are going to conduct witchcraft, who literally don't want to sell the church to a witch. Sorry, that's I can totally understand that, but that's what we're dealing with. So I'll get in more about these occult or organized operations if you guys haven't listened to the previous episode where I basically go into depth about it. But these types of things are going on. So let me get back into this article or back into these documents where we're talking about Project Center Lane, or the Center Lane method, and Project Grill Flame, because these are types of things that we need to look at whenever we have people like Katy Perry coming out saying she's going to go buy a church to do witchcraft. How occult do you think that is? Where do you think that puts her on the ladder of satanic power? They have more rituals and witchcraft planned. But let me get back into this document where we're talking about declassified CIA files that show how the U.S. has used psychics to spy on other countries. You see. So they're talking, we were talking before we got on the jag about Katy Perry and how she's doing some witchcraft, and Lana Del Rey and all these things that are going on today. We were talking about how remote viewing is a Stanford Research Institute international coined term, which is defined as the acquisition and description by mental means of information blocked from ordinary perception by distance, shielding, or time. Meaning that they're able to, if anything, put themselves in previous, think back to a certain time frame, think back to a certain event, and put themselves there. If they're given enough details, they can psychically get themselves to project themselves over there. If that makes sense. I'm not one of these people conducting these experiments, but I'm sure they have figured out ways. The document goes on to say that using several apparently gifted psychic subjects, the scientists conducted a review of CIA-sponsored tests. Much detailed, accurate information, some of it previously unreported was provided by a secret NSA facility, the Soviet R&D facility in Semipolatinsk, guerrilla training bases in Libya. Okay, well, I'm going to try that one more time. It says that this was a Soviet research and development facility in Semipolatinsk, guerrilla training bases in Libya. Because of these original tests, the last decade, because some of this was actually blocked out, I think this is because, it involves another country. They don't want to release that much with the Soviet R&D facility with things going on in Libya. I'm not sure. But the document goes on to say that because of these original tests, the last decade of work centered around remote viewing. Since those original tests, the CIA suspended their active role in psychic-energetic activities for, air quotes, political reasons, but have continued to maintain a high state of interest in all ongoing work because of obvious defense applications. During the same time frame, the military services and DIA, at one time or another, have been involved in numerous psychoenergetics tests, most of them applications oriented. The U.S. Army interests in psychoenergetics goes back to 1972 when the Surgeon General, through the Medical Intelligence Information Agency, MIIA, through the DIA, published studies of the Soviet bloc work. In 1976, the Missile Intelligence Agency, MIA, formally expressed interest in U.S. replication of claimed Soviet experiments in psychokinesis. So apparently the Soviets were working on psychokinesis while we were over here working on psychoenergetics. Somewhat of the same thing. But if you have paid attention to the show where we've talked about things like Project Paperclip, where we got the Russians, or where we got the scientists from Germany and the Russians got the equipment, it would make sense that these rival programs would be going on, if you ask me. It says that SRI developed a small program for them, and in August of 1977, MIA awarded SRI a $80,000 one-year R&D contract. During the same time, another DARCOM agency, the Army Material Systems Analysis Agency, was involved in the investigations of remote viewing concepts with SRI. The efforts continued through fiscal year 1980, and in March of 1980, William J. Perry, the then Undersecretary of Defense from Research and Engineering, ordered curtailment of all P6 monies supporting the program. I don't know what any of that means, but it says they posed no objection to continuance of non-R&D intelligence application efforts. This action effectively or eventually caused DARCOM to cease all activity. And it says that the chart changed because the U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command's involvement with psychoenergetics began in September of 1977, and at that time, an ENSCOM element implemented the Gondola Wish program, which was designed to integrate the Soviet and East European psychoenergetic intelligence collection threat into the all-source operations security support scenario. So basically what they're saying is that not only were they having success, but later on they decided to merge with other programs, with the East European psychoenergetic intelligence collection agencies, the Soviets as well. It says by spring of 1978, the Army ASCI, and this is the All Source Operations Security Initiative, concluded that there was sufficient evidence to warrant the development of a comprehensive program to explore military applications of psychoenergetics. He canceled the Gondola Wish effort, placed a complete security envelope over Army interests in psychoenergetics, and implemented a new program directed towards intelligence collection using remote viewing, and this new effort was given the unclassified nickname Grill Flame. And this is where we're actually going to go in and talk about things like Project Grill Flame, because that was another one of the documents that I printed up for you guys, if I can find it. Yep. Okay. Yeah. And this is, I'm sorry if all this stuff sounds boring to you guys. I'm sorry if I'm losing some of you guys right here. But we got to get this stuff all out there so that we understand when we're talking about these types of things, when we're understanding what people are doing with the power of the mind, how it's being weaponized, how it can actually indeed show success. We've got to understand what that means. And I'll talk about this later on too. Some of you guys actually send in some of your stories and some of your responses to the actual question of whether or not you are empathic, if that is a form of being a psychic, if you are having these types of experiences, and what this means for humanity. Okay, because as I said before at the start of the show, we have for some strange reason found a way to systematically separate ourselves from the source, to where we no longer think that we are capable of these types of things, to where we think we're capable of greatness. And if you ask me, this stuff, when we're looking at it, this is evidence of our history. I mean, there's so many different things that come with this that it blows my mind. It blows my mind, so much so we're clearly doing an episode. But right here, and this is a disclosed document. It is from August 20th, 1981. More documents, guys. More. I like that. And the question says, Project Grill Flame is an Army and DIA jointly financed effort to study novel intelligence collection techniques. The fiscal year 1982 justification material states that Grill Flame studies will help to identify the capabilities and the vulnerabilities associated with paranormal phenomena having military applications. And the first question is, can you provide a detailed description of Project Grill Flame to include the objectives of the project and exactly what paranormal phenomenon DIA and the Army are studying? Well, here's the answer. It says Grill Flame is a planned 3-year joint program, which is in its first year, fiscal year 81, between DIA and the Army to investigate in detail certain paranormal phenomena such as remote viewing and psychokinesis that have potential military applications. Emphasis this year has been on evaluating application potential and limitations of remote viewing, the ability of the individuals to mentally collect data at a distance, phenomena, and to evaluate the significance of foreign work, particularly as it may pose a threat to the United States. So basically they're saying that they're trying to work on evaluating foreign work. They're using this to study things like remote viewing, psychokinesis, and as we said before, the phenomena, the paranormal phenomena that they're describing as psychoenergetics. You see, and that's why we had to look at this stuff beforehand so we understand how these projects basically progress. Okay, and the next question is the CIA conducting similar studies? If so, what is the interface between the GDIP and the CIA efforts? And the answer is, although the CIA can best answer this question, DIA is not aware of any present program at that agency. DIA, however, does maintain interface with the CIA by keeping them informed of progress in the Grill Flame effort. So apparently, they're not involved, but they're involved. The next question says, are there studies being accomplished in the house or by external assistance contracts? Currently, Project Grill Flame is conducted primarily through an external assistance contract with the Stanford Research Institute International. However, the DIA does have a small related in-house project to assess foreign capabilities in parapsychology. Parapsychology, paranormal phenomena, psychoenergetics, psychokinesis, remote viewing, all of these things, some people are naturally inclined to have, some people aren't so much, but these are all things that are emblematic of what's going on. This is in our history. This already happened. So whenever we ask the question of if you've had these kinds of things happen to you, if you yourself feel like you're a psychic, if you feel like empathy is a form of psychic behavior, well, that's not irrational. That is definitely not irrational. The fourth question is, what level of funding to date for Grill Flame that the Army, what is the level of funding to date for Grill Flame that the Army and DIA have each provided? And it says in the fiscal year 81 of the Grill Flame program and associated contract at the Stanford Research Institute International, Army provided $130,000 and the DIA provided $300,000 for the joint effort. I just can't say joint. I keep saying junt. I don't know what that's about. Money. That is $430,000 to investigate parapsychology, paranormal phenomena, to continue the investigations of, if anything, one of the offshoot products of Project MK Ultra. Where they're basically continuing the operations of the Center Lane method, where they're still conducting these types of experiments. You see, it says what level of funding for GrowFlame is being requested in the fiscal year 82 by the Army and the DIA. The Army plans to provide an approximate $140,000, and the DIA wants to provide $335,000 for fiscal year 182. So they're expanding. Obviously, they're having results and they're expanding. What does that mean? And this is the question that may get you. That's going to make you think a little bit about what's going on here. And I'll play this video for you guys after this. Evidence of psychic abilities explored by scientists in a new video series. Because what? This is our history. They're continuing these types of operations. It might not have Army, DID, or DIA, DOD funding behind it. You know, the Stanford Research Institute, it might not have that funding behind it. But these types of things are still going on. And right here, this is the 6th question. How many Army and DIA personnel are involved in Project GrowFlame? And this is where it gets tricky, because this is how you gotta listen to how sly these people answered. Okay, it said that the DIA expanded approximately 1.5 man years for fiscal year 1982 or 1981, and the Army expanded 1/4 man years, excluding their own related in-house program. So they didn't give us a precise number as to how many people are actually in the program. They're just telling us that we need more money and that we'd indeed expanded. The 7th question is Project GrowFlame the only GDIP effort to study paranormal phenomena? And they say yes. They say yes. Yeah, that's all. That's literally all they say is just yes. But I don't think that's the case. As you can see, we're trying to go through this timeline, and which is weird. Like I said, I don't know how it's set up that way, but it did. This is what happens whenever we try to follow the trail, and if anything, this is what they always say: follow the money. Because this is what this type of stuff means when we're looking at evidence of psychic abilities. We shouldn't downplay the people that actually are psychics. We shouldn't downplay these types of things that are very, very real. You see. So let me see if I can get this video ready for you guys where they talk about it.
Cases of the mind seemingly influencing matter have been reported across many cultures and throughout history. Many of these stories strain credulity, but could they have a basis in reality? To explore the relationship between mind and matter, scientists have been conducting controlled experiments for nearly a century. Early mind-matter studies, such as those by J.B. Rhine in the 1930s, were basic by today's standards. They investigated to see if people could influence the outcomes of simple events like dice throws. While positive results were reported, in the 1970s, physicist Helmut Schmidt refined the approach by designing the first truly random number generator, or RNG. Schmidt's early RNG derived its coin flip from the release of electrons from a piece of weakly radioactive material. Schmidt found that when participants mentally intended to influence the RNG, its outputs actually changed to go slightly in the direction of their intention. The effect was very small, but overall, it was highly statistically significant. Later experiments, such as those carried out at Princeton's Engineering Anomalies Research Laboratory, confirmed Schmidt's results. When participants intended an RNG to produce more high or low counts, the statistical outputs departed from randomness in accordance with their intentions. Nearly 3 decades of research produced positive evidence of a mind-matter effect associated with odds against chance of greater than 1 trillion to 1. Other experiments, such as those carried out by researchers at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, not only supported earlier findings, they found that changes in mental states and shared emotions also seem to influence RNGs. When researchers took RNGs to events where large groups of people engaged in similar thoughts and emotions, the devices were often seen to depart from their ordinary random behavior. The Global Consciousness Project, led by Princeton psychologist Roger Nelson, took this idea to a planetary scale, setting up a worldwide network of RNGs. Nelson predicted that global events capturing the attention of entire populations might produce detectable departures from randomness across the entire network. Over 2 decades, some 500 globally significant events, including New Year's celebrations, terrorist attacks, and natural disasters, were associated with significant increases in statistical order in the network. Together, the odds that these results are due to chance are greater than 1 trillion to 1. How these effects occur and what they mean remain mysterious, and yet a large number of studies indicate that where attention and intention go, order mysteriously flows. The mind-matter research hints to the existence of an important relationship between consciousness and the physical world. It implies that the ancient belief that mind occupies a fundamental place in reality could have a basis in truth.
I'm inclined to agree. I'm definitely inclined to agree. Now, I know he's just talking about simple things such as, science and precognition, random number generators, and all these other simple things like that. But we got to understand whenever we're looking at this is scientific evidence of how we're basically able to affect this world that we're living in, this reality. I know that's a simple way to look at it, but there's so much more to the human experience. The experiment experience, I always get the two confused. My mouth just does not want to say. It doesn't want to pick. There's so much more that we've got to look at whenever it comes to consciousness, whenever we're looking at our awareness, whenever we're looking at our orientation, what we're able to do. And that's what I'm trying to say. We've got to understand ourselves in order to be effective. What they're trying to do is systematically destroy us, separate us from ourselves, disenfranchise us from our power. You see, I want to read this article, and then if anything, I'll go into some of your guys' responses over the question of whether or not we are psychic, or if people who are empathic have psychic capabilities or psychic tendencies. You see, so right here. And this is from the Waking Times. I put this up February 20th. It's from Waking Times by Terrence Newton. It says that to bridge the conscious, it was experiments at Burning Man to test the science of collective consciousness. Why am I trying to talk about this after talking about psychics, random number generators, how they're conducting more studies into the psychic phenomena? But what we've got to look at, and this is something that we've talked about as well on the show, is things like the Schumann resonance, the heartbeat of the planet, the electromagnetic wave of the world. You see, we are able to interact with this world in so many different ways, and we are able to create change. We're able to create effects. And that's what I'm basically trying to mean whenever we have people that pray, or people that meditate, whenever they try to put out these types of vibes and speak these things into existence in a good way. That's what we need more of. We have way too many people over here that are systematically saying everything sucks, life is horrible, we are washed in negativity and death instead of bathing in light. It's strange. But it says to bridge the gap between material science and the science of consciousness and spirit, a paradigm shift must occur, and eventually it will, thanks in large part to the efforts of pioneers who are testing new theories in the mind and how the mind shapes the physical world. On the cutting edge of exploration of the mind-matter connection are individuals like Rupert Sheldrake, who has elaborated on his theory of morphic resonance and morphic fields. That sounds crazy. That sounds kind of wild. Just wild enough to be on this show. Okay, some of the as yet undetected quality of the ether, which allows for instinctual and instructive information to be passed on between generations of insects and animals. Epigenetics. That's another thing that we've talked about as well as on this show. How your legacy is more than just your parents. You know, if you want to take it even to a deeper metaphysical aspect, the legacy of all of us, if we're all separations of the same source of the original humans. You see, looking ever more for verifiable signs of a field consciousness, or as some refer to it, a noosphere. That sounds pretty cool. A noosphere, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, IONS, has conducted an experiment in 2012 and 2013 at Burning Man, the festival in Nevada, and it was to detect what effect a highly concentrated and focused collective consciousness might have on physical matter. The working hypothesis of the study was that, quote, mind and matter are complementary aspects of a more fundamental, holistic reality. These two aspects of nature may appear to be quite different from one another when examined separately, but from a broader perspective, they may be seen as a part of an intimate relationship by virtue of being connected to, or a part of, the same, air quotes, substance. Mind and matter basically being connected to or a part of the same substance. And this is one thing that we've talked about as well on the show, cymatics, the study of vibrations, how vibes, how sound, how frequencies, waves, these types of things, how they can affect the real world, how they create structures due to the waves and the frequencies that are being presented. And if you want to think about things in an even stranger aspect, well, you're very well aware of operating in your beta state of mind, your alpha state of mind, your theta state of mind, and your delta state of mind. These are all brainwave patterns that people are able to access. This is what happens whenever you pray. This is what happens whenever you meditate. You're allowing for yourself to enter this substance, enter this resonance, enter this harmony with whatever the world is, to basically heal yourself. And no, I'm not talking about channeling. That is something else entirely different. That's where you're opening yourself up. What I'm trying to say is harness. Use the intention and the focus. You see, and based on this proposed relationship, when minds experience a period of unusually high collective coherence, then perhaps matter will also show a period of high coherence. Furthermore, the underlying hypothesis in this study of this type, dubbed a field consciousness experiment, is that mind and matter are complementary aspects of a more fundamental holistic reality. As an analogy, the idea is that subjective mind and objective matter may be like heads and tails on a coin. These two aspects of nature may appear to be quite different from one another when examined separately, and we've already gone over this. Sorry about that, guys. That basically happens whenever you're reading at a mile a minute. What I'm trying to get at is that this type of look into our larger broad view is something that people don't talk about every day, because they don't understand that this is very real. People don't believe in themselves. More importantly, people don't see what they can believe in. You see, if you're putting your effort into believing what other people tell you to believe in, you're never going to know how to think for yourself. You're never going to know how to affect change on a broader scale. We're always saying speak things into existence, create your reality, use, be effective. Well, what is this? You see, it goes later on in the actual article to talk about how the random number generators were able to, if anything, notice the rise and anomalous behavior prior to 9/11, to where they could tell that it was going to take place. The random number generators, and when you're looking at this type of stuff, guys, really what this is this is the Schumann resonance that they're trying to talk about. This is the collective consciousness. This is what we're tapped into. This is why we need to look at things like weather modification, HARP, all the other things that they have going on, because this is how we're affected. This is the studies of electromagnetics or electrogravitics. This is the study of the soul. This is higher science's really that we're starting to look at these days that people don't understand. This is spiritual sciences, and this is why it's having the kind of implications that it's having. You know, what did I talk about in the previous episode with these occult or with these organized occult operations? That's how they can come out with these Illuminati, Super Bowl, secret society commercials saying, who leaked the information? Who's leaking everything about us? Some of these things are meant to come to light. All of the deeds of the devil will come to the light whenever you shine this much light on it. Because there's too much evidence out there that proves this. So let me see. Do we have enough time? Yes, we do. We will make the time. We will make the time. Okay, so obviously, you know, we talk all the time about how we know that there are a lot more possessions and things taking place. We're very well aware of that. But what I wanted to highlight with this, one last thing before we jump into your guys' stories, with Katy Perry going to war basically over buying a church and doing witchcraft in it. What we've got to look at, guys, is now that we understand what psychics are, that the fact that we can't affect change with our mind in this world, whenever you have people like Katy Perry basically using her legion of demons, her legion of fans, of mindless zombies who idolize her, to practice lower level magic, and if anything, higher levels of magic to try to be cool with her, when they have it directed. Do you see what I'm getting at? Do you see why this is bad? Do you see why we don't need celebrities? Look at what Beyonce has already done. They're already trying to promote her as the Babylonian goddess, and we see that all the time. We know she's up to all kinds of rituals every other year. And now they have a child, so we'll see where that goes. But look at what's coming up in her wake. Lana Del Rey, Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, all saying, you know, openly practice this witchcraft, openly practice magic, lower forms of it, lesser magic. And they don't know what they're doing. Do you see what I'm saying? There's an entire difference between magic and psychics. But these both, if you ask me, fall underneath the categories of powers. These are things that we have to deal with. We should not be having organized occult operations take place against us. Because this is truly a battle between good and evil, between God and the devil. I don't want to polarize things. I'm not here to tell you guys to pick sides. I'm truly saying, look at what these types of things mean. Do you really want an army of Katy Perrys walking, talking, practicing witchcraft and doing these types of things? That is whenever we have a huge problem. You see, and that's what I'm trying to raise awareness about. There's a lot more to the human experience that people don't take into consideration or that don't really think about it. And when they do, they begin to understand, wow, you know, I am pretty powerful. I'm pretty strong. There's a lot more to me than meets the eye. But when they take it a step further and they go into the darker sides of this awakening, of this understanding, this path of the dark enlightenment, that's whenever we have a problem, because then they're becoming offensive in their manners. So let's see. I definitely wanted to get more into you guys' story. All right, here, you know what? We're just going to jump straight into it. You know, I had asked the question of, do you believe you've had more than one psychic experience? I've also asked if you yourself are psychic and are empaths a type of psychic as well. And we got a lot of responses. So many. Like like 7 pages worth, guys. And clearly, you know, I really couldn't get them all. I wanted to. This isn't a paranormal perspective, but I really wanted to. I wanted to get all these types of things on the same page so we could understand it. But one of the responses we got was from Kakma, an athletic dude, where they were having a conversation, and it goes like this. He says, well, to my knowledge, and this is where he's talking about dreams, predictions, and future sight. This is what I would consider the psychic behavior. He says, well, to my knowledge, dreams are divided up into 2 categories or types. And the first type is the dream is hard to remember, and that's where most people become forgetful of what they've dreamed after they wake up. This type isn't an actual dream, but it tells the individual that there's something wrong or something they need to address within their life or within their body. People usually think nothing of it and put it out of their minds, not doing anything until the situation worsens, and then they're forced to confront the issue. So basically listen to your body. The second type, and this is the captivating type, not everyone is lucky enough to have these types of experiences, but it's whenever people are able to remember their dreams so vividly, almost as if they were there. And I have one, hopefully we can get into it, and this is, if anything, a beautiful story that I would really like to get out, because I feel like it explains psychic impressions and the abilities of the human mind. But this is basically where they're able to relate to something that will happen, including indicating that you have something coming to you. It truly does depend on the type of dream and the experiencer. Okay, and then the next story that we have is from Bo72, and he says that he thought he was crazy as a child, or as a kid. He said he grew up in a small town with no cable TV in the 80s. So, someone older than me, thank you for submitting your story. He says, I played outside all day, barefooted, with warm weather permitting. Maybe that kept me more grounded than most, but unfortunately not so much these days. I grew up always having a knowing of things, without question. He says I would hear voices telling me about future events, and sometimes I would argue with myself over what I was hearing and try to block out the thoughts, because I literally thought I was going crazy. Oddly enough, when the predicted premonition took place, I would hear that same voice whispering to me and telling me, see, you need to listen to what I'm telling you. From that point on, I truly accepted it as a gift. Now, I'm not sure if that's demons. I'm not sure if that's his higher self. I'm not sure what that is, but I felt like people talk about this knowing, this Gnosticism, where they just know things. And I think a lot of people innately feel this type of way, but they don't want to seem conceited. And it's not a know-it-all type of, vibe or a mindset. It's a feeling. It truly is. It's an understanding, and it comes with this type of behavior, this type of understanding, this type of reality. You see, the next story that we have is from Contently, and it says, when I was coming into a consciousness and awareness from about the age of 3 to 6, I'd have these really, really vivid dreams, so vivid that when they would reoccur, I would tell my mom all about them. And one time, when I did tell her, I just remember her crying. She asked me how I knew what I knew. It was like watching, and I told her it was like watching through a window in her womb. But it was something that had happened to my family more than 3 years before I was born. Think about that. Saying she has memories, and her mom carrying on conversations about what she remembers before she was even born. That's another thing that we need to look at as well, whether or not people have these pre-life memories, because that is a very real thing as well. But she goes on to say that I have proved telepathy to myself on a number of occasions. Almost every night, I lay my dominant palm on my husband's back while we're falling asleep, and I think to him how much I appreciate and cherish him, and usually when this occurs, he goes to sleep immediately. But before so, he says he admits that he hears it. So long story short, I'm pretty stoked that I can pour out all my cheesy romantic stuff and he doesn't have to get anxiety about reciprocating, because he has already treats me like a goddess. Well, congratulations, Contently. Your name is appropriate, because it sounds like you're content, and it seems like these types of things are real. People are able to impress upon feelings. I don't want to say, lay hands on people, because these days that means fighting someone. But that's where the terms comes from. Laying hands on someone, trying to pray for them, trying to heal them. The next story that we kind of have, it goes into sensitives and clairvoyance and claircognizance. And this is kind of what I would consider the empaths, these types of psychics. Empathy helps in figuring out people. Empathy helps in figuring out other people's thoughts, emotions, and intentions. This is often chalked up to having some type of psychic power or clairabilities, in my opinion. And this was said by Darkstar Tony, and I would definitely agree. And this is where the story. This is how I want to close this out, if anything, because this is one of the stories that's going to make you you know what? I'll try to go through this story because it's really good. And this is by Laura Anonymous, and she says, okay, so here goes. So my 16-year-old son passed away a few years back. God rest his soul. And when he was born, I was a young single parent of 3 children. With that being said, I was trying to raise my child, go to work, go to school, pay bills, and live the single mom life. He grew up to be a genuine, caring, respectful young man. And after his passing, of course, I was devastated and still am, along with my other children and family members. Now, I won't go into any more detail on that, but after something like this happens, you really do stop and take time to look back at your life. You start to ask questions like, if you had the chance to do it all over again, would you do it differently? Since his passing, I've always wished I could go back in time just to see him once more, to talk to him one more time before trying to get ready for work, running late, yelling at the kids, saying, "Come on, hurry up, get your shoes on." I'd say, "Okay, Evan, I don't have time for this right now," and he would say, "I just want to tell you, how beautiful you are," and then jerk that I am, I blew it off. I have so many regrets in that regard, and that if I would have, only stopped to smell the roses, things could have been different. I've been able to move on, but it's something that haunts me to this day. Now here's my experience. A few weeks ago, I had a dream, one of the most vivid and memorable dreams I've ever had. I still remember it as if I just woke up. I basically went back in time to my old house. My children were younger, and it was like any other normal day. They were playing. My brother was there. My son Evan was there. It was a beautiful day. Life was great, and everyone was happy as they could be. The only difference was that I knew I was from the future. I knew I was from the future. I was aware of my current self and memories. Knowing this, I took the time to enjoy Evan and got to spend what felt like 1,000,000 years with him. And then when I got excited and wanted to talk about all the things that were going on to my brother about our future, all the things that would happen, and all the things that are going to happen, for some strange reason I couldn't. And every time I tried to bring up the future, I would just jump into a different timeline. And when I woke up, I would get this feeling. I got this weird feeling like, I got my wish, like I was able to get my wish. I was able to go back and do things differently. And to this day, that dream comforts me. That was one of those stories that, whenever I was reading it, whenever you have people share this kind of deep spiritual, this is someone who had a child, that lost a child, and is sharing their experience with me. All I can say is thank you for sharing that. Really, Laura, thank you. Because these types of things, I think a lot of people resonate with that. Just being able to want to do things differently, and I'm definitely glad you were able to do things differently. Just to spend that time that was needed. And I think that's good, too, that we're having experiences like this because, as I said before, the power of the mind, it shows that time as we see it is not linear. As she said before, she was able to spend what felt like 1,000,000 years with her son in a dream. And then you have to ask yourself, well, is this the dream or is this the real world? You see, we have 2 more stories that we can try to get into before we have to close out. And this is by Amy A. Sumner, and she says that I am an empath, and I have had true medium-like visions that turn out to be 100% accurate. Although I can't turn it off and on at will, it does randomly happen. For instance, I was speaking to a friend of mine on the phone who mentioned that a distant relative had recently passed away. Right away, I had a vision of a man come to my mind, similar to Bernie Sanders, cane on the left, clothing, etc., etc. Sure enough, she later posted a video of him, and I'm not kidding when I say the vision was accurate, down to the cane and the fact that he looked exactly like an older, if possible, Bernie Sanders. My husband freaked out because of how accurate I was, even down to the type of shoes he wore. To this day, he has no idea. I have no idea how I was able to see that. But I take my mediumship soon. So to answer your question, Freedom, yes, I do believe empaths are a type of psychic. We feel others' emotions and true feelings. We can sense energies everywhere we go, which guide us all along our life. We go through our days using that knowing ability. I believe it's some kind of clairsentience, so a psychic ability. And empaths are also natural healers, and as are psychics and mediums, just in different ways. So I guess you could say that any of those abilities are there for helping and healing. It's an ability with a purpose. No, I definitely have to agree, Emily, because these types of things are real. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying go get your palm read from a gypsy in a trailer, just outside of town or something strange like that. But what I am trying to say that these things take place. People are able to be that much more in tune with their spiritual side. That is a power. That is an ability. You see, and this question, or this last story, comes in from Christensen Moreland. And he says that we are all given a gift by God. Our genetic history has the proof that real humans have souls, which enable us to have a connection to this unseen realm that some call the astral plane, or the spiritual realm. Whatever it is known to you as, we all possess the power of God within ourselves. And when we eat right and live in the light, you are capable of tapping into that power. Shoes and most footwear these days are designed to block the natural electric and magnetic flow. We are created to feel this flow, and we used to be one with the earth. And a simple way to restore this spiritual ability is to walk around barefoot. Sounds strange, but isn't that what we talked to Orgon about? Is that not what he's doing? Sadly, the concrete and buildings are harder to remove, and this is why some of us live in concrete jungles of steel and stone. With that being said, you are still capable of restoring yourself through prayer, meditation, and stretching, not yoga. Yoga was invented by Shiva only to allow energies and entities to come into you. Copy the movement of animals, not that of an instructor. Use the natural to combat the unnatural. And I would definitely have to agree, Mr. Moreland, because whenever you're looking at it, a lot of these man-made things, they truly have their own design. But whenever you look at what's natural, whenever you come up against the natural, it definitely makes you understand things in a different light entirely. Entirely. So I know we went over a lot in a rapid fashion as we typically do, but I wanted to go over all these types of things to show you guys that indeed there is a growth taking place. More people are feeling, sensing, and understanding this awakening that is taking place. And as I've said before throughout this show and other episodes and videos, the only thing that's wrong, the only reason these people seem as though they're winning is because they're more organized than us. And that's the only problem. They're not better. However, that's all I really have for you guys. I know I kind of went over a lot, as I typically do, but if you guys haven't caught on, there's more to you. I believe in you. You're capable of much more than you think, and if you take the time to understand yourself, if you take the time to see how beautiful you can be, how powerful one individual is, I think we'll start to understand how effective we truly can be. That's all we're really doing these days. Is just trying to add that spiritual discipline so people understand that they're more important than we've told that we weren't. But as I said before, make sure you guys are getting involved in our Patreon exclusive so you can get all the behind the scenes work that I'm doing to show you to show you that there is much more that one person can do. Make sure you guys are becoming part of our Patreon exclusive, as well as paying attention to our Paradox Radio. Go to our website for all of the daily updates that we're doing. If you don't want to go to our Instagram, to our Facebook, just go to our website, factionsoffreedom.jimdo.com, and then just get access to everything that we're doing, because we diversify the information because you guys deserve it. But that's all I really have for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll have it in the description bar below. And as always, guys, stay vigilant, expose lies, and share truth. This is Noisera, Freedom Faction, out.